Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Make sure you download the app and use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Happy Tuesday. Carlos Correa on the move again. Luke Stuckmeyer, Cody Delmendo, Ryan Herrera as we work our way up to Cubs convention coming up this weekend in downtown Chicago. And yes, Carlos Correa. I mean, there's a lot you can say about this.
We haven't talked about him in a while.
No, we haven't. But we've been wondering, when would the Mets thing start to really fizzle out? So Jeff Passan was the first one saying 6 years, $200 million, now to go back to the Twins, vesting option for another $70 million for 4 more years, and it's still pending a physical, but John Heyman had reported that the part of the problem with the Mets, the part that was the problem, the ankle with the plate, has already been done. So the report is that portion of it has already been done. Yeah. Sounds like this is finally where he's going to end up, going back to the Twins for $200 million. The first thing that's obvious is at $200 million for 6 years, why wouldn't the Cubs want him at third base for that?
My thing is, it feels like that's like a pretty big discount that he took to go back to Minnesota, and at a fact where he's just like, I'm trying to get a deal done. And I think the fact that he played in Minnesota, not saying that Minnesota is this big time organization that's always competing or so, but like he was outwardly, he talked about how much he liked being in Minnesota throughout the year. He enjoyed being there, got to know the team, got to know the coaching staff, all that stuff. So, I don't know, maybe part of it is just the fact that he's familiar with Minnesota. And I can't say that any other team, say every team met 6 years, $200 million. There's probably a better chance that he goes back to Minnesota just having been familiar with, if it's all about the money, but he's also familiar with his organization, then I can see why he'd pick Minnesota. It's weird. I don't know.
I just would assume the Cubs never got in the conversation after they decided not to make an official offer to him because it was getting too rich. Then they shifted, as Gordon was telling us, then they shifted right to Dansby Swanson. Yeah. Dansby Swanson, 7 for 177. We can discuss that in a second, which deal is a better deal. I still like that they have Swanson at shortstop, the Cubs. I think it's great. But when I look at that deal and I say third base, the Cubs are a franchise that could have easily gone slightly over that and still been like, you know what? If the plate moves and it all breaks up and we get 6 years and we end up eating 250, we end up eating 200. I got to tell you, that's a gamble I think is worth it. Now, the only side piece to that is to say, there's certainly something there that the Mets and Giants, who desperately wanted him, walked away after seeing those. Like, they didn't want that price tag anymore. But you know what? The Twins didn't pay that price tag. And so the Twins have to be looking at this saying, well, even if our doctors say it's not a problem, worst case scenario, we're eating $200 million. Guys, if the Twins can afford to eat $200 million, what player are you going to get in the near future to play third base for the next 6 years for $200 million that could be possibly even in the same ballpark as Carlos Correa? I don't think it's not my money. I just can't believe that they wouldn't have gone back and been like, wait a minute, the Twins are offering you what? Make it $250, done deal.
Well, the way it looks to me also is that two other big time, like very interested, trying to compete teams were incredibly, fearful of what the physical showed.
Don't you think they would have taken, like, let's just suggest the Mets and Giants, if they would have offered the same thing the Twins just did right now, 6 for 200, don't you think those teams would have been willing to do that?
Well, I wonder if they did.
You spurned me. Let's play devil's advocate. Let's say the Mets say, all right, we'll give you 6 for 200 if that's what the Twins are going to give you. And he was like, no, you told me you were going to give me this. He'd rather take his pride, go back to Minnesota.
That's where I'm at.
And lower money.
At that point, it was he liked being at Minnesota. Minnesota's been in it. And we know they had offered a lesser deal than what the Giants originally offered and even what the Mets originally offered, but it's an organization that apparently treated him right, that he'd like to be at. And as soon as these other orgs were again, fearful of what they saw in the physical, he went back. They reached back out to the Twins, and the Twins obviously didn't have a problem with the physical the last year when they signed him. And so they're like, let's get a deal done now. That's what it seems like to me. I don't know. Cody, what do you think?
I'm just frustrated, man. Like, I'm like, and this isn't against like Swanson or Bellinger or Tyone. Like, we're gonna go to spring training and we're gonna do pre and post first opening day in April. And you know what I'm gonna sit here and say? I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna tell you that I'm gonna talk myself into 85 wins again, like I did last year.
Yep.
And if I'm sitting here in like June, hell, maybe even May, if everything just goes to shit, I don't think that will, but I'm just saying, like, that's the worst possibility probably. But if I'm sitting here in June and the Cubs lose like 16-7 to whoever again, I'm going to look back at this. Like, that's just the fact of the matter. Like, you're right, Luke. Like, the Cubs absolutely should have been in this situation. Like, sure, perhaps Correa just wanted to go back to where, like, somewhere he's familiar with and this and that and, like, all that. Like, perhaps that's true. But, like, why didn't the Cubs at least call? Like, that's significantly less.
We don't know.
And it's the type of contract that we sat here all year and talked about how that's what the kind of contract that Jed wants to do. Yeah, the 4-year vesting option, sure, could turn into, 10 years or whatever, right?
Is it 8 or 9?
Whatever it was. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Either way, like, the contract he got was right up the Cubs' alley.
It was a contract that you would say the Cubs drew up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but someone said in the chat, but when I look at it, I'm like, I don't think he would have taken that deal from the Cubs. Like, if it was the Cubs giving him 6 years, $200 million, the same deal that the Twins were giving him, I think he goes back to Minnesota.
Perhaps.
I think he's comfortable in Minnesota. Minnesota, they underwhelmed this last year as far as, like, competing now. They were underwhelmed last year, but they had some pieces to at least be more competitive. They should have been more competitive last year.
They were in, like, the first half of the year.
Yeah, right. I mean, Byron Buxton, if he can stay healthy, he's a superstar, right?
They could be really good.
What's I'm saying? I think he sees that,
especially in that division.
Provided they can be healthy, that's a potential playoff team in a bad division overall. He got comfortable with the lineup and the players and the coaches, whatever, and it was just I think if you stacked it up, 6 years, $200 million, and whatever other incentives they had, to him, Twins versus Cubs. Twins are a team that treated him right. The Cubs, he never really had any interaction with since that pre-draft thing. It feels to me like this is a place where he's like, all right, these other teams are afraid of my ankle or whatever it was. I'll go back to Minnesota.
Yeah,
I think that's it. I think that's just it to me. I don't think he would have taken 6 years, $200 million from the Cubs. But I don't know.
Mike Ross in the chat is saying maybe the Cubs know something we don't. What could they possibly know? Like, the doctors have told us this guy's plate is not going to age well. Something's wrong. Yeah. You could end up having ankle surgery. That's why the price tag has come down from $350 when the Giants signed him. Then you go a little bit further down, and the Mets go to $315. Mm-hmm. Now he's down to $200 million. I mean, here's the timeline. March 19th, he gets that short deal with the Twins last year. We don't hear anything about the plate, which is already in his ankle. We hear nothing about it. Then he opts out of the deal in November. December 13th, he agrees to the huge $13,350. I am totally okay with any team saying too much money, can't do it. The Giants were willing to do it. Then they took the physical and were like, okay, well, for $350, now that we've seen this plate and what it looks like in the ankle, now we have concerns. I'm okay with that too. Then the Mets jump in there like, we don't care about that. We'll give you $315. They start to balk at the physical going, well, wait a second. $315 is a lot of money now that we've seen the physical and what those MRIs look like. Again, the $300 million thing is a deal. But now when he agrees to a 6-year, $200 million deal, the worst case scenario is that the doctors from the Mets and Giants are right, and this will never play out. But the deal, guys, is only 6 years and $200 million. Right. I know to you and me that sounds like a crazy amount of money, but baseball players make 200. Mm-hmm. You just gave Dansby, who was rated 4th, and again, I love that Dansby's the shortstop, but you could have had the dream scenario that we originally talked about of having both of them.
Yep.
Now, I would guess that the Cubs didn't get back involved in it, and again, we may find out in Cubs convention they did try to get back in on it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the scenario Ryan's talking about. Where did he say, well, I just go back where I'm familiar? I find that hard to believe based on this guy was out there last season telling us about how he was a Dior guy and he likes the flash. And like, by the way, Minneapolis is not giving you the flash of Michigan Avenue.
No, but we also have no idea was any other team actually offering him 6 years, $200 million. And with all, I think John Heyman, I just saw it.
I say no.
From his tweet.
I say no. That's why he's back
Here's
there.
exactly what the rest of it goes. He has the conditional years. He said 7. It goes to 10 years, and it vests based on like plate appearances every year. But he can make $25 million year 7, $20 million year 8, 15 year 9, 10 in year 10. So if everything vests, he ends up making $270 over 10 years, which is right around, I think, a little bit below what the Twins had originally offered him.
Yeah. But he's got to get through those 6 years.
Yeah.
He's got to show you that's healthy for 6 years, and then you're talking about really eating a $70 million deal if it goes bad.
But then
in
what
year
I'm
7.
trying to say is that at that point it's $270 million over 10 years if all that comes to pass. And knowing Correa, he believes he's going to be healthy and reach that 10 years, $270 million. Which at that point, what other team was offering him 10 years, $270 million? Yeah. Was there anyone?
Well, the Twins think originally were 8 for 280 something.
It was 10 for 280.
10 for 280.
Yeah, so it was right there what it was.
Yeah, like he's still getting the high average. So like his average money in this deal is second only to Judge in the offseason. Still with the way it played out.
Yeah.
But he's the 3rd highest paid overall cash-wise. No, he's 4th. He's still 4th.
Yeah.
No, he's not. Dansby's 4th. Dansby's 4th. He's still 3rd. He's still behind Turner.
Yeah.
And he's still behind Bogarts based on how it played out. Like, there's no question that he has lost money in this MRI and the whole situation with the plate. I think he's back at Minnesota because there was not another big player willing to offer the 2 for 6. Nobody was willing to offer this deal because they were all like, oh, this is a headache. The medicals, something's really wrong. Let's not even get involved in it. That's just how it appears. And so he went back to the place he was familiar with. He still could make 270. I'm just saying if I were the Cubs, and maybe it's not Jed, maybe it's further up the top, I'd be willing to risk $200 million for the next 6 years to have Carlos Correa potentially at third base.
Yeah, I mean, I would too. I guess we won't know exactly what. I guess I'm interested to see what Carlos Correa says at his introductory press conference, assuming this one actually happens. Yeah. I know it's going to be a lot of fluff and saying he loved Minnesota, and what I'm curious to see how he describes this whole Giants to Mets back to Minnesota saga. I really want to see, but. I'm curious to see when, the sourced reporting comes out of what exactly happened and why exactly he ended up picking Minnesota. Because, I've been saying the familiarity probably plays a part in it, but at the same time, it's still Minnesota. Right?
Sure.
It's like who. If
the Cubs offered $20 million more because the cost of living is way more here than it is in Minneapolis, and you're looking at the same deal, just because he knows Minnesota, I can't imagine he wouldn't want to take the exposure of what he could make being the star of the Chicago Cubs and playing third base.
And then we just don't know what if the Cubs reach back out, what they may have offered him, what any team may have offered him. I mean, for all we know, this is the highest bid he got. For all we know, this is the highest contract offer or at least AAV, and plus what the vesting options could make it out to be. This is the best offer he got. This could be what as far as we know.
It feels like he was sitting there and the Mets were dragging their heels and they were trying to chop down the $315 to less years, less money, and he was like, you know what? Screw it. I am going to take the Twins offer. But you would assume that Scott Boras at least reached out to a few other teams that were interested off in the distance somewhere at some point, just like we know the Cubs at least sat down with him and had a conversation, but never made the official offer. You would assume an agent like Scott Boras at least dialed up those other numbers, were like, Do you want to get back in on this?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not going to cost you $350.
Yeah. I think I'm more so just more frustrated with the entire offseason, more so than this storyline. Like it just looks like another guy that the Cubs, look like they're sitting on their hands. Like, and again, like if we're sitting in July and we're talking about stock up, stock down, like who we trading, then again, I'll be sitting here thinking, what happened, Jed? Like, I don't know. I want to think optimistically about the roster going into spring training. Like I've said that, and I like the signings that they've made, but it's just another feeling of not enough, and you're asking for a lot on a lot of unproven guys, and so when this type of scenario comes up, my brain just automatically goes to like shoulda, coulda, woulda, or whatever, and just leaves me in nothing but frustration along with our YouTube chat right now. So, yeah, I mean, that's just basically where I'm at. But I hope that the Cubs tried, I guess. Like, I don't know if it's going to make me feel any better, but you know what I mean? Like,
right, if they tried and failed.
Yeah.
Because he actually chose Minnesota over Chicago.
Yeah.
Well, that's a gut punch, too.
Yeah.
That's a reality check if somebody's choosing the Twins over the Cubs.
That's what I said, like, before he even had that agreement with the Giants. Like, if he went back to Minnesota and it was because he just liked Minnesota better than the Cubs.
Yeah,
that's a different indictment on the Cubs organization
Yes.
than if they just got outbid for him. Like that in my head might be worse than the Cubs just getting outbid for him.
Yeah.
Michael Collada has said about 35 times so far in the chat that Ricketts is cheap. And I saw somebody was saying, I think it was Brandon was just saying, I can't be mad at this or the offseason as a whole. They've improved their team. I do feel like there have been improvements.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in this scenario, it feels to me like there was an opportunity to take a $200 million gamble on one of the 10 best players in baseball. Mm-hmm. And the Cubs seem to be in a position where even if it didn't work out and the guy had ankle surgery and was never the same, Hayward shouldn't have been enough money to pull down the Chicago Cubs and make them be like, we can't do anymore because we have what's left on the Hayward deal. Look at the money the big market teams are spending. It shouldn't have been that. It shouldn't have been what it was in the first place. It shouldn't have been an albatross. Mm-hmm. So to me, $200 million shouldn't be an albatross for the Chicago Cubs, because if you put Correa at third, and even if he only plays 2 seasons before, you know what, the plate's gone and he needs ankle surgery and he's not the same guy, the money you would increase pulling into Wrigley Field and the jersey sales that you would have around Wrigley Field would certainly eat into part of that $200 million.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I sit here on the outside thinking, man, I feel like it would have been worth the gamble. Even if the plate's a disaster and the guy's career goes south in 3 years, they're in a position now where they don't have a lot of big money contracts to worry about. Mm. So to have that gamble now with the prospects coming up and have them next to Swanson and Nico and the signing of Bellinger, which might just be a 1-year deal, likely is a 1-year deal. You got Happ, Suzuki. If they take a $200 million risk, they make themselves at least a co-favorite to win this division for the next 2 years. Minimum.
Yeah. I look at it and I can't be frustrated. Like I don't see the frustration in this just because his whole free agency was just crazy.
It was,
and that the Cubs originally checked in. We're in some discussions. I mean, the report was that they never really made an offer. We don't know exactly why that is. If that came from they just heard the number he was getting elsewhere and then didn't want to match it. And when I look at it, I can't be frustrated by it just because his free agency has been unlike anything we've ever seen.
But would you agree that
and something tells me that the Cubs, like looking at it again, Carlos Correa and the Mets and the Giants, they did their due diligence, saw things in the physical they didn't like. Something,
which I believe.
Something in my gut tells me the Cubs and any other team that may have checked in on him wanted to do the same due diligence, wanted to do the same physicals, go through all that stuff, have these contingency plans to get out of the agreement, whereas the Twins may have just been a team that said, hey, we know you from last year. We're fine with what you got. Come here. We'll pay you this money.
I just can't believe that a small market team like the Twins ends up being the team that's willing to take the $200 million gamble on the guy.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, in the end, it's a $200 million gamble on a great baseball player. Not a good one, a great baseball player. $200 million. The fact that it's the small market Twins willing to take that $200 million gamble is the shocking part to me. I know he's been there, and they looked at it and said, we've seen it, we're not worried about it, yada, yada, and he's likely going to pass that physical because it's been reported that he's through that part already in Minnesota, that part of the physical. There's so many big market teams out there. I understand why he wouldn't take that offer from the Mets, and I understand why he wouldn't take that offer from the Giants, two big market teams that really want him, because it's a pride thing at that point. You told me you were going to pay me $350. Now you're trying to get me for $200.
Yeah.
No way. I'll go back to Minnesota. Same thing to the Giants. No way. I'll go back to Minnesota. But if a team that never made you an offer, the Cubs, the Red Sox, what are they doing? Like, there's a lot of big market teams that are still sitting out there, even the Yankees, that I'm surprised aren't like $200 million. We're the Yankees, $200 million. Let's take the gamble on it.
Well, and
if his ankle's bad, so what? It was $200 million.
And that tells me even more that there's teams that, well, obviously, like, because the front offices, all these guys talk.
Yeah.
So the Mets, the front offices had to have heard what the Mets and the Giants were concerned about, and they wanted to do their due diligence too. This just kind of keeps me even like more in that direction of these teams really want to do their due diligence on that ankle, which rightfully so they should if they're going to spend that much money on a guy who in a couple years like that may become a huge issue, right? So rightfully so they should. But then it seems like even more to me like the Twins, who would have already done that physical last year, would have already known something was up, but were comfortable with it, would have been like, we're not going to make it. He probably didn't want to go through a third physical process only to get burned again. The Twins were like, we're not going to make you do that again. We're fine with what you got in your ankle. We'll do the rest, the regular physical, everything else, make sure everything else comes out. But we're good with the ankle. We already know about it. We did it last year, right?
It could be a pride. It could be a pride thing for him.
It keeps telling me even more that may be what happened. I'm not reporting anything. I don't want to speculate too much, but that's what feels
the whole
like.
Thing is speculation.
It just feels like that's what that because the Twins already know the medical history with Carlos Correa having done this last year. It just makes even more sense to me that that's a main reason why he would have gone back to Minnesota for
Christian A says it's because the Twins want to win, Luke. Over what team? Like, you don't think the Yankees want to win?
The Mets want to win.
You don't think? Well,
Steve Cohen wants to win.
I realize that. I think it's totally a pride thing that he wouldn't take a similar offer from those other two teams, because if he's been negotiating with them, I bet you he was getting at least that offer from the Mets. But he'd been told otherwise. But you're talking about the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Yankees. What other big market team might want to get in that? There's plenty of them other than the Twins that still want to win. Like, you can look at the Twins lineup and say, well, the Twins are a better team than the Cubs are. Yeah, but if you put Carlos Correa next to Dansby Swanson, the Cubs are a lot closer than you think than they look at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And wouldn't you rather live in Chicago than Minnesota? Come on, guys. Like, let's be honest. Like, I love walleye fishing. I love the outdoors. I like Minnesota. Don't get me wrong.
Minnesota.
I love Minneapolis for a day or two. But if you're comparing Chicago to Minneapolis, St. Paul, that's like comparing the best steak you ever had to like a slider you got at a bar one night. It's not the same thing. You can still have a good slider, but it isn't the best steak you've ever had at Gibson's or Chicago Cut.
My guy Mike Dubs lives in Minnesota, and he's from Chicago.
He can tell you.
It's a nice place.
And I know for a fact, because he told me this at Murphy's last year when I met up with him, that he lives in Minnesota because I think his wife is from there, and she don't want to leave there.
Sure.
So, but I think if it was up to him, he'd come back here.
You get a boat, you live near a lake. Listen, there's stuff to do. But to compare Minneapolis, St. Paul to Chicago, come on.
I don't know, man. Like, the entire situation is just, obviously it's wild. We've never seen anything like it. I just don't want to sit here in the middle of next season and think what happened, because like That's where I'm at.
In my opinion, Cubs fans should be happy they got Swanson and didn't have to go through this.
I don't think it's
Swanson's
about that.
a good.
No,
but I'm saying
agreed.
I'm saying instead of being frustrated over not getting Carlos Correa and all this crap, just be happy you got a really, really good player for a good contract. Who's going to be 7 years, $177 million. He's a Gold Glove caliber player, and coming off his first All-Star. You're hoping a lot of these things happen, and you didn't have to deal with all this crap. You didn't have to go
played
through.
Out worse.
Oh my God! Imagine being instead of it being the Giants or the Mets, you're the Cubs, and you're going through all this, and you keep trying to get back into it, and then all of a sudden you're left with nothing because Dansby Swanson probably signed with another team. Imagine that.
You would have lost out
instead
on
of being frustrated at this whole Carlos Correa and the Cubs sitting on their hands or whatever you want to call it. They went out and got a really, really good shortstop.
Yeah, well, my point is
that should be the happy thing.
My point is that he could have played third base. That's my frustration.
But he doesn't want to play third base. That was the whole thing. He wants to play shortstop.
But he was willing to go do it in New York.
In New York for $315 million.
So that is a possibility that he looked at it and said.
The Twins said, "We'll let you play shortstop. Like you're going to be our everyday shortstop, right?"
Fine.
There's so many different reasons and so I can't.
I'm with. I understand that there are 1,000 different reasons probably.
But I can't sit here and be like the Cubs didn't. I can't.
I'm not saying
I can't pin it all on Jed and the front office for not getting it when there's plenty of other plausible, probably more plausible scenarios for why Correa ended up in Minnesota.
That said, Ryan,
fair points.
If you were running the Cubs and you were a billionaire and you were Jed Hoyer, if you had $200 million and you could gamble it on Correa's ankle for 6 years, would you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would have checked in for sure.
I agreed. I would have
100% would have checked in, seen what it would have taken.
So I hope they checked in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to the report of, they tried. Thank you.
Well, Ryan is worth. Ryan's white
trade.
It could have gone way worse.
Trade. We'll make the graphic like the White Sox.
Attempted signing.
They could have been. Ryan's right. They could have been left with nothing.
Or not our guys, but
in hindsight, they could have been left with nothing. The worst case scenario would have been they agreed to a terms with Correa at like $300 million, and he went through this whole thing, and then they had to let him go because of the medical, and then everybody else was gone, and you were left with the same infield you had last year.
Look where it's at now. The Giants this was supposed to be the...
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
This was supposed to be the guy that Giants were going to sign to be their guy, their superstar to lead them in the future. Yeah. Their franchise player, and now they don't have that. I forgot who else they signed.
Michael
this
Conforto.
Conforto, there you go.
Yeah.
He's not Carlos. Yeah. No Carlos Correa.
I'm not saying that the Cubs have had the worst offseason of the entire league, but we can't sit here and say that.
Makes you a little jealous.
All I'm saying is
envious.
You can't sit here and say that what you were hoping for happened. I think we're still sitting here wanting more. And that's my point.
Always wanting more.
And I wrote about that. Wrote about that a little bit at allchgo.com this morning. So if you want to
check that out,
a little commentary.
Green Ridge Farm is a Chicago local meat and cheese company offering you a better all-natural option. Makers of all-natural deli meat, sausages, and their famous meat sticks. Perfect for tailgating, happy hour, and school lunches. All-natural meat sticks that are hardwood smoked for 8 hours. 16 grams of protein per stick, making each a perfect post-workout snack.
If you want to bench 275.
If you want to bench 275, you better get on the meat sticks. Meat sticks come in chicken, Black Forest beef, flavors like jalapeno cheddar, spicy chili. If you haven't tried them, you don't know what you're missing. They're delicious because they're made from recipes that are generations in the making, and being all natural, they deliver a fresh, flavorful alternative at snack time. You can always find them in the refrigerated section at Costco, Sam's Club, and your Chicagoland grocery stores. And right now, when you order any 3 meat products at greenridgefarm.com, go ahead and include a pack of meat sticks in your cart. Those meat sticks are free just by using the code CHGO at checkout. Green Ridge Farm, simply natural meat.
Game Time is the hottest new ticketing site that makes it easier than ever to score the best deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. Ever dreamed of sitting in a seat you never thought you could? A 50-yard line, courtside, behind home plate at a Cubs game? Floor seats at a concert is possible with the Game Time app. The biggest last-minute price drops can be found on the seats you thought you could never buy. You won't find a better deal this season on Bulls tickets. Bulls are still going on right now. Blackhawks as well. Game Time is created by the fans, for the fans, guarantees the lowest price. If you love CHGO, then you'll love Game Time. The best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in the description. Join over 15 million people who have downloaded the Game Time app and score the best seats to all your favorite events. Cody, did you use Game Time when you went to that was the Illinois Northwestern game?
Yeah, I would have if I actually went. My friend bailed, so I didn't go.
Brutal. Well, at least you didn't have to watch that.
Yeah, I stayed home and had my heart broken on my couch instead of in person.
Yeah, you didn't have to watch it in person.
Yeah.
It would have been a waste of money for you.
Yeah, it would have been.
But it
and
would have
also, like, Northwestern also charges more when Illinois comes to play there because they know they're going to take all the money from Illini fans.
Yeah.
So
it would have been a waste of money, but
That
also
seems
would have been
wrong.
a cheaper waste of money.
It is wrong, in my opinion.
It would have been a waste of money, but a cheaper waste of money because of game time.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I would have had a great time. I probably would have told a bunch of kids that should be in the Ivy League to screw off or whatever. Yeah, that's about it.
Some good comments in the chat today. Mike Dubbs says Avi Shirts needs to make a shirt that says pending physical. Mike Ross says if you can bench 275, you are a meat stick.
That's my favorite comment of the day. To me,
You are a meat stick.
Hi,
Love it.
Ryan Meatstick Herrera. Nice to meet you.
That's me.
Meat Stick Herrera.
Maybe that could be your shirt.
Put that on a
Bobby.
shirt.
Meat stick.
Just meat stick. All right,
Joe, I hope you're watching.
so we were talking a lot about the Correa deal to the Twins, which pending physical, second half of the physical assumes it will finally get done, and he'll go there for 200, potentially 270 million if it all plays out. It would have been nice to have him at third and put him in the lineup. Tony Andracki, former coworker of mine, teammate of mine, is now at Marquee, and he does great work there. And he was with Ryan Dempster and Andy Martinez, and they were trying to figure out who's going to bat leadoff, where would you put the lineups, right? We'll do that at some point this offseason. Tony had the unique idea of suggesting, what about Eric Hosmer as your leadoff guy? He's never batted leadoff in his career. He's not a leadoff guy, but he does have a nice on-base average. Do you like that idea? I would assume he's going to be lower, much lower in the lineup than that. But could you see a scenario where he was that guy? I'll be honest with you. I'm old school, so I never saw a day in my life where I thought, hey, why don't they put Kyle Schwarber leadoff? Like, that never crossed my mind until it happened. I was like, what? Or same thing when he let Joe Madden let Rizzo bat leadoff. I was like, what? But Tony, I know for a fact, is also the guy that used to tell me over and over and over how he wanted the Cubs to try Chris Bryant as the leadoff guy. That never really happened.
No.
What about Eric Hosmer?
It happened for like a month or two, didn't it?
Hosmer's certainly not like speedy, which is what you normally think.
No.
Like, you think of a contact guy, somebody that'll get on base, nice on base average, and can run.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I don't know who the leadoff hitter for the Cubs should be because the best leadoff hitter the Cubs have, the best leadoff hitter the Cubs have was going to be coming off the bench. Like, Nick Madrigal is your prototypical leadoff guy, except that.
And that's who Andy suggested as the DH, which pushed Morrell out of the lineup and Wisdom to third.
I just don't. I mean, no one wants to see Madrigal playing DH. Like,
that's tough.
Like, your DH has to have some pop, man. Like, that's just. I mean, it's unconventional if they did it, but I'm just like he is the guy that could be that leadoff hitter. Great contact rate, blah blah blah. But again, like, he's got to play himself into that role. Like, if he's starting opening day somehow, some way with like Nico playing third or something, like some crazy shit. Like, I don't know. Like, some crazy stuff would absolutely have to happen for Nick Madrigal to be starting for the Cubs opening day.
Yeah,
and hopefully it's not because of an injury, but like, again, great contact rate and doesn't strike out a lot or anything, and takes the ball to both fields. Like, it makes sense that he could be that guy, but again, he'll have to play his way into that role. So, like, as far as like your projected lineup right now, I mean, I don't know, like, maybe like if we're gonna stay unconventional, like, I feel like Seiya wouldn't be a bad try because he's
he does know the zone. He's got some power. Ryan Dempster suggested Nico.
Yeah, when I look at it right now, like, as far as guys, you're probably projecting to be the opening day starters. Nico probably is a guy I would lean towards as the leadoff hitter. he had a relatively high OBP, 327. It's not like great. Probably a little closer to league average than you want it to be, but it was good. It was solid. He still hit 281. The one thing he doesn't do a lot is walk. He had 5.4% walk rate last year, which is even below Patrick Wisdom. Patrick Wisdom had a 9.9. So if he's going to be a leadoff hitter, that he needs to improve in that area a lot. He needs to walk a lot more. One, because that's just going to raise his on-base percentage. And as we talked about, like OBP is pretty, even though that's a little more of an old school stat at this point than a lot of these new Fangraphs-esque stats, on-base percentage is still a pretty good indicator of how good of a leadoff hitter you could be. It may not be the best, but it's pretty good still. So if he can raise his on-base percentage solely through walking more, that's huge. And then every other, improvement he's going to be making at the plate. I think he turns 26 in May, so he's still like learning the game at the big league level, even though he feels like he's been up forever. So I think the biggest improvement he can make is just walking more. That's easier said than done. But if he can do that, if he can add a few percentage points to that walk rate, in tandem with the rest of the improvements he'll make, I think he could be a really good leadoff hitter because he's not. I mean, we had that conversation. Will he ever hit 18 home runs in a season?
Right.
If he's your leadoff hitter, he never has to. Like, if he's a leadoff hitter, he can just get on base at a really high clip. He never has to hit more than 15 home runs.
Would you rather have him increase his on-base percentage because of the walks? Would you rather have him get more walks, or would you rather have him hit 5 more home runs?
Get more walks.
Would you rather see a little more power out of Nico, or would you like to see him walk a few more times?
Well, given the state of the roster, I'd like to see him hit a few more homers, but
that's a kind of a tough question, really.
I think I lean more towards the walks, but go ahead.
Both.
I mean,
would be the perfect answer.
Yeah, both would be great, right?
Yes, would be the answer.
100%.
I mean, I don't think we've seen the best of Nico, so like, yeah, I think he could do that. As far as a conventional guy, with the shift being gone, and obviously I'd rather have Seiya in the middle for more RBI chances. Like Nico, off just first glance, he'd probably of projected starters, he'd probably be the guy that I would want to give that chance to. But yeah, I mean, Tony is like, it's interesting about Hosmer because he does have a good on base percentage. You just I don't know,
he's thinking out of the box on it, right?
Yeah,
just like he would have been, like putting Chris Bryant would have been out of the box. My thing about Hosmer would be generally you're starting to see teams put their best hitter 1 or 2 a lot of times, because they want that guy to bat as many times as possible in a game. That guy's not Hosmer for me. So that's why if you tell me who do I want to see bat the most times in that lineup, it's Nico.
Yeah.
So in that way, I would say it's Nico. Now, somebody in the chat brought up a great point, saying Hosmer is likely a platoon guy. And do you really want your leadoff guy to be a platoon guy? Or do you want your leadoff guy to be the same guy every single day? Now, the Cubs haven't had that since Dexter Fowler.
Yeah.
Right.
They've been looking for that. And that's when the one thing about Dexter Fowler is that he was a switch hitter and allowed him to play every day regardless of platoon.
So maybe Ian Happ.
Yeah, so I've seen someone say
Ian Happ.
Say Ian Happ, and I looked at his numbers. He had a 9% walk rate, so that was above Nico's. 342 on base. He did really well. A little heart of the lineup this last year. But I guess I do wonder. If he's hitting leadoff, he's gonna have the most at bats in just a regular old game. And he walks again. He walks better than what Nico has put up last year. He puts the bat on the ball, doesn't strike out a ton, or not as much as would probably make you wary of putting him at leadoff. He gets on base. He hits both sides. I mean, I guess he sort of fits the mold of like what you are looking for in a leadoff hitter. He's not.
Runs well.
My number one option.
He's not Ricky Henderson.
No, he's not even Dexter Fowler as far as what you're looking for in a leadoff hitter, I think. But I could see that. I could see Ian Happ being that leadoff hitter.
He was the leadoff hitter in 2020 of those I'm pretty sure that entire 60 games. I want to say he was for the majority of it, and he started off that season really hot. And then really fell off towards the end. But that back then he was such a hot and cold player.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to see how he would do in it now, considering he's coming off the most consistent season of his career. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. He would make a lot of sense in terms of like the type of player him and like if you compare him and Dexter Fowler in 16, even 15. But again, like considering the lack of power on this roster right now, it's like, do you want Ian Happ on your leadoff spot?
Or do you want to wait till somebody's on base? Because you got to have somebody drive in the guys that are on base.
But again, like, who knows? If you let off Ian Happ, then you're moving Bellinger up in the lineup, and you're moving. You'll probably have Swanson somewhere in that middle too. Like, and Swanson is something that obviously you just got to pay a ton of money. He's someone that you probably want somewhere between that 3 and 6 spot. And Bellinger's a guy that you just don't know, right? And Seiya, like, if you're going to put Ian Happ first, then I would like to see Seiya either second or third. Maybe put Nico back in the middle of that lineup, somewhere between 5 and 7, and maybe that would work. But I don't know, man. Like,
I'm 99.9% sure it's going to be what we've seen the last couple years: lead off by committee, lineup by committee. I just don't think. First of all, the Cubs aren't maybe talented enough, like depth-wise, to have an everyday lineup like that. That's pretty rare, and it's also becoming more and more rare in baseball in general. Like, it just depends on the matchups, the pitching matchup, all of it, to where it's not this guy bats 1, this guy bats 2, this guy bats 3, this guy. That just doesn't happen as much, especially on a team that's not loaded, right?
Yeah.
They have a lot of guys that are platoon guys, can play multiple positions, guys that can float in and out of DH. Yeah. I think the lineup's going to change a lot, except for, like, I think Nico will be at second and Dansby will be at short for the majority of the time. We know Dansby wants to be too. But other than that, and Suzuki and Wright, I still don't think they'll be hitting necessarily in the same spot all the time. I just think we're going to see a lot of variety again.
A dark horse maybe, like Morel. Like, if he can, build off last season. Like,
I just think he strikes out. The way it ended, he struck out too much to be a reliable leadoff hitter. You want a guy that's going to put the ball in play, because putting the ball in play gives you more chances to get on base just by sheer luck and half the time. So I think unless he really improves upon that strikeout rate, he's looking at probably lower 4 spots in the order, in my opinion. I think if I'm predicting it right now, and what I would do with the lineup right now if I'm David Ross, sitting here on beginning of January.
For the first week of the season, who will have the majority of the leadoff spot?
I'm going to go Nico. I would go Nico. The way I'd construct a lineup: Nico, Seiya, Happ, Dansby is probably my top 4.
Let me look here and see what Ryan Dempster had: Nico, Dansby, Happ, Suzuki, Bellinger, Wisdom, Hosmer, Barnhart, Morel at third. I
think that bottom 4 or 5-ish is right. I'd probably just switch Dansby and Seiya. I think Seiya might be the thing is, like, with 2, 3, 4, it's like it kind of really is kind of preference and how these guys kind of mix in with each other. I just think if I'm looking at it myself, and I don't get paid to be a big league manager, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. I'd go Nico, Seiya, Happ, Dansby.
That the Dempster one gives you a lot of lefty righty, which he points out in their piece, that then a pitcher just can't get settled on seeing the same thing, pitching the same way, just getting locked in on this is righty, or whatever. I like that part of it. The one that I would pause the most at would be Andy's. I don't love Madrigal leading off if that means Morel's the odd man out more often than not. Like, I'd rather find out. I almost have more faith that Morel's going to be an everyday player than I do Madrigal, to be honest.
Oh, for sure. Because he can play third, and like Madrigal,
he has more versatility.
And Madrigal is going to play second,
and way more power.
Yeah. And I know we like to put down Madrigal because he doesn't have the power.
I'm not saying that. He has a role, but I just don't think it's.
He's going to hit a home run this year.
I just don't think it's lead off and DH.
Yeah.
I should have put that in my prediction. He's going to hit a home run this year. It's gonna happen.
If there's any like,
he wasn't hurt all last year, would have happened.
If there's any hope for Madrigal, it's just that he has a last season type breakout like Nico did, and I'm not even asking for the same numbers or anything like that, but just like shows more value than what we've seen. And Nico did that last year.
Well, and that's what I said maybe like last week or so, that for Madrigal at this point, he's the odd man out in that middle infield. He's going to have to, like when we talk about the offseason in general, just being really big for him as far as, doing the right things to get his body right to make sure he can stay healthy for a full season and doing all this different work that he needs to do. But he's going to have to prove that he's going to have to play his way into, he's going to have to force David Ross to make him to play him every day or figure out a way to get his bat in the lineup more often than not, because at this point, again, he's the odd man out, and we don't know exactly what a role for Nick Madrigal will look like for the Cubs in 2023. He's going to have to prove in spring training, going into the season, like, hey, Rossi, you're going to have to play me every day if you want to win. Like, I'm hitting insanely well, or I'm surprising everyone with my defense. Whatever it is, it's like you got to find a place for me in this lineup, because you can't afford to have me coming off the bench every day.
His spring is going to be like
it's
like
huge.
my eyes are going to be on him a lot in the spring, because as much as we sit here and joke about the lack of this and that with him, like he could be, I don't want to say X factor, but he could be a big part of any kind of success that the Cubs have if he really does do what you just said, transform his body and stays healthy, and
he has to play his way into it. It really is kind of up to him. Like if he's not playing well, then how does that give Ross any real decision making on how often he should play? Like, I mean, Madrigal appears to be a guy that thrives when has more consistency. Like that helps him get a better rhythm, and that's really any baseball player. Like it's really hard to be a bench bat when you might hit once every couple games. Like that's not easy.
No.
If you're hitting 3 times a game like that, obviously you're going to get in a much better rhythm that way. But at this point, it's like that appears to be the role that Nick Madrigal has on this team. Whereas if he plays his way, has like an awesome spring training and shows Ross, like, I did the right things this offseason, I deserve the playing time that I should get. It's up to him to do that. Like Ross isn't going to hold his hand through spring training and be like, okay, like we're going to keep giving you chances. Like knowing Rossi, he wants to win every damn game. Yeah. And he's going to put the lineup out there that he believes is going to help him win every damn game. And if that includes Madrigal because he's played his way into that, Ross is going to figure that out. It is up to Nick Madrigal to do that.
Well, I hope he can do it. We'll see what happens. I know a lot of people are interested in watching him as long as he's on this team, which is another question. Whether he'll be just traded.
I mean, he is a potential trade guy.
Sure, because somebody's always trying to think the change of scenery. I just don't feel like he's really had that shot with the Cubs.
No, he hasn't.
The injuries haven't allowed him to have that shot. Chicago, you've already got the best coverage for your favorite teams, so get fitted out in the best sports gear around. FOCO has you covered from Soldier Field to the living room, north side, south side, hoodies, slippers, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. You can get decked out like tomorrow with apparel from the leader in sports merch and collectibles, FOCO. Looking for the perfect gift for the football fan in your life? FOCO's got you covered with hoodies to fight the Lake Michigan breeze this winter. Check out FOCO.com or click the link in the description below for all non-presale items. Make sure you use the promo code CHGO for 10% off.
So you asked me about if I went to Illinois Northwestern last week.
Yes, I did.
And so going in, my next point is I was watching Illinois-Wisconsin from my couch on Saturday. Illinois won. I didn't have to consider throwing myself into Lake Michigan.
ILL.
And what happened? My guy Tom from Chi-Town Cornhole tagged me in this beautiful tweet of this beautiful set of Illini.
Oh, I saw
cornhole
those.
set.
Yeah, I saw
It
them.
was absolutely beautiful.
It was magical.
I straight up told him, I was like, can we please go tailgate an Illini game next year with that set, that exact set? And he said, yes.
You get a little tear coming out the side of your eye.
I thought about it. Because it was just nice to feel something because Illinois finally won a basketball game. But anyway, the point is Chi-Town Custom Cornhole, the #1 cornhole provider for Chicagoland and Illinois since 2007. Their signature box-style design can be digitally printed, covered in vinyl, and painted. Their cornhole boards come with built-in drink holders recessed in on the back, LEDs that light up the hole and exterior, handles for easy carrying, and handcrafted scorekeepers. Veteran owned and operated. Tom's a great dude, by the way.
Good guy.
They ship everywhere and offer local pickups, specializing in corporate designs for your company's next marketing or social event, wedding gifts, and gifts for all occasions, especially for tailgaters and backyard barbecues. Go check out their website, ChiTownCornhole.com, and make sure to follow them on Instagram at ChiTown Custom Cornhole Boards. And I think it's ChiTown Cornhole on Twitter. He tags me in like every tweet, especially if it has to do with Illinois. So he's a great dude.
I said that the last tailgate we had, I played bags or cornhole, whatever you want to call it, against him and one of his buddies, and he was good.
Yeah.
I'm bad, admittedly bad, but he was throwing in like a 45-mile-an-hour crosswind, and that's like trying to kick a field goal at Soldier Field. Not easy. He was good at it.
Colada says if you put a picture of Ricketts over the cornhole, he'll never miss.
Colada also said that the Cubs have never had a good team without a good leadoff guy.
Yeah.
And we know that Dexter was the you go, we go, right? Mm-hmm. Who was the guy from the Royals that every year, why am I blanking on his name? Every year the Royals had the leadoff guy. He's an all-star. And it was like, oh, the Cubs are going to go get him. This is the year.
Whit Merrifield.
Whit Merrifield. That's who it is.
Yeah, Brian Roberts is in there.
And it was just
Chris Archer.
It was nauseating how often he was allegedly traded to the Cubs.
I mean, this might be the year. It might happen this year.
They'll wait till he can't even walk anymore.
The Royals? He's still on the Royals.
No, he's on the Blue Jays
now.
now.
Didn't he get traded, didn't he?
Yeah.
But Merrifield might get traded. The Cubs might finally get Brian Roberts this offseason. Like, there's a lot of potential for
trade for Chris Archer, too.
for second base trades this offseason.
We only have like 6 minutes left, but I am curious, do you think the Cubs need a leadoff guy, like an everyday leadoff guy, to be a really good team? Is that something that they do still need in this day and age of baseball? And number two, where would you put leadoff in their priority of things that they need right now? Like, I agree they need a leadoff guy. I think you do want to have a guy that bats leadoff 75, 80% of the time if you can. I think it helps your lineup consistency. But I'm not sure it's a priority for this team yet because there's enough issues and holes in the lineup that I'm not as worried about who's batting leadoff every day.
Yeah. I mean, look at Schwarber was batting leadoff every game for the Phillies in that run to the World Series, and I'm pretty sure he did it all year for them anyway.
Some people hated him as leadoff with the Cubs.
Yeah, and you know how that turned out. So yeah, I think they have to find a way where more often than not their leadoff hitter is the same guy. And I understand what you said, Luke, about how it's kind of the lineup is going to be unconventional, and it's going to be changed a little bit. Thing is, on the flip side of that, the amount of times fans always yelled at Joe Madden for always having the different lineup every day, and there was no consistency with it. So, and that was during winning seasons too. So I don't know. Like, I think for this roster, it's not as big of a deal just because you just don't know. But of any of them that I think that have like the best chance to be successful at it, I think Nico or Hap or Seiya would be those three guys, in my opinion.
I think those are the first three. I think those are the first three you see, and I think if you're talking about the next great Cubs team, one of those three would be a likely candidate to still be that guy. That's why I'd like to see them try those three guys.
If they didn't get Swanson, then we would have automatically just locked in Magical at leadoff, in my opinion, because that's what he did. Like when he was healthy, when he was healthy and they played him, he was leading off every game. And
he would have played second base, and Nico would have stayed at short.
Right. But that didn't happen, and, like, we're happy about that.
Now we're in a different situation.
But now we're in a situation where, okay, like, you're not going to play Magical every day. Who's the leadoff guy? Who can give you quality at bats, force pitchers to throw more pitches than they want, and, do more than just get on base, but also, have a little pop, have a little, just be more than just a pest. You know what I mean? So those three guys I just said, I think, have the ability. But as we saw, especially during the winning years, like outside of Rizzo, I mean, like Brian didn't succeed in like the month try that they gave him. Like he was good for like a good week, but then like fell off. And then, you know, they had other guys that, you know, Ian Happ also, like he went as well as he did do it in 2020. There was also other seasons where they tried him at leadoff and he completely flopped in it. You know what I mean? So hitting leadoff, we can sit here and talk about the analytics all you want, but like some guys just do not hit there, right? So like I hope that if they do give Nico the shot, which right now I'm with you. Like
if it's me, I would.
Yeah, like again, I would like to see Seiya try it there, but I understand why Nico makes more sense. So if they did give Nico that shot and he doesn't do well in it, then it's like, where do you go from there? And also like, I hope it doesn't mess with his like psyche or whatever. You know?
I would put Nico as the front runner for the spot.
Yeah.
For all the reasons we've talked about, and for the fact that it was Ryan Dempster's suggestion, and we know he drinks beers with David Ross. So I'm just going to say that conversation has come up before.
Yeah, probably.
Hey, who do you think lead off? We'll probably try Nico at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems like something that could go down, right?
Cheers the old style. Yeah.
Hey, it's a good thing it's another season of exploring. Is that how you call it?
Season of exploring.
There you go.
Not too much exploring, but some exploring.
No, not as much exploring as it's not the Louisiana Purchase.
That's right.
But it's
we don't have to be Christopher Columbus here.
Yeah.
But, you know, exploring like I want to go to a new city on vacation, that's okay.
You
Discovering
can do that
whole
and still
territory is
win.
not necessary.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Please, God, please, just win. That's all I ask.
Just win. Put that on a shirt.
Just win.
Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app and use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. We're back here on Wednesday, 1:20, with another live podcast right here on YouTube. And if you download it, make sure you give us the likes and all those positive things.
Subscribe,
comments. We like it all. And we'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great day and fly the W.